Yeah, I mean, and that's like something we've talked about is essentially like the business model of a lot of Wall Street or whatever else is just leveraging connections to government and powerful people, which of course gives you information about what's about to happen that you can trade on, which is valuable.
Yeah.
But yeah, like just on that point, like Forbes wrote some article which was essentially like Jeffrey Epstein is not a billionaire because that's their
the only thing that matters.
That's their racket.
We have the list. He's not on it.
But so basically they were saying like as part of discovery in these court cases, the lawyers for the victims tried to find out Jeffrey Epstein's net worth, of course, to get damages. And Jeffrey Epstein's lawyers would come back and all they would admit was like it was above 9 figures, I think was their quote. And again, like he was...
Sorry about that, guys.
Yeah, no worries. Epstein was at least involved in like tax avoidance strategies, so of course a lot of his money's offshore. But the point was essentially like even if he's not like technically a billionaire, I'm sure the photographs that he would have a market value close to $1 billion. Right.
Yeah, if that lot came up at Sotheby's, there'd be a hell of a bidding war.
People laundering money through the photographs.
Well, a lot of the names that came out because his, I guess they're called housemen, just like head butler. When he left stopped working for Jeffrey Epstein, he took a bunch of documents with names on them, and he said it was just to make sure he wouldn't disappear. And then no one wanted to hire him after they found out, after Epstein got convicted, and then you have Jeffrey Epstein's houseman on your resume. No one wanted to hire him, so he tried to sell the names to a lawyer involved in a lawsuit for $50,000, and it eventually just turned out that by not giving those names to police, he was withholding evidence, and he went to jail. But the names got out, and they included...
The papers also included the names, addresses, and phone numbers of famous individuals: Henry Kissinger, Mick Jagger, Dustin Hoffman, Ray Fiennes, David Koch, Ted Kennedy, Donald Trump, Bill Richardson, Bill Clinton, and former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak among them.
Bill Richardson's my favorite.
Yeah, and so this is like just kind of like the addresses that he had, though apparently like the Bill Clinton one had like 20 different pieces of contact information just so he could like reach him at any time.
Wow.
And and it is just kind of something where we talked about this. We did an episode on like David Koch and the Koch brothers, and like it's some grand scheme of things. Maybe they're more evil, like they're essentially doing a mass extinction event and covering it up and these kinds of things. But like researching Epstein, it's so much more visceral and horrifying. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But then you find out that David Koch is in his address book, and you're like, he's doing that too.
Yeah.
Maybe allegedly.
Yeah.
But interesting note on that is that, so his housekeeper, Epstein's housekeeper, takes this address book as evidence so he doesn't disappear. And another running theme in the book is how many people seem to think they're going to disappear if they testify against him.
The thing about, I just want to say, thing about the Koch brothers and Epstein, and how, one of them is this flamboyant pedophile and the other one you just think of as this quiet psycho, but who also might be doing it. Basically it boils the question. There's two terms that they use to describe billionaires: eccentric and reclusive. And it basically boils down to how flagrant their pedophilia is. Like, do they have their own private island where they do it, or is there a subterranean vault on their ranch? Do they invite people over, or do they keep it to themselves? And that's the difference between reclusive and eccentric.
Yeah. But so we mentioned, so this housekeeper who stole the address book, he was like
the houseman. That guy?
Yeah, the houseman. He was charged by the FBI with extortion because he was trying to get like $50,000 for this, and withholding it from the FBI because he didn't tell them about it in the original investigation. He serves 18 months, which is longer than Jeffrey Epstein serves.
And he had to be in jail the whole time.
Yes. And
whereas Epstein was allowed to go home
on a work release.
6 days a week.
He couldn't go to his regular job and do insider trading and then come back.
Right. 6 days a week?
And that was against the explicit rules of the sheriff's department that did not allow sex offenders to get furloughs. They were explicit. That was a thing you could do for certain crimes, but the crimes he was convicted of were ones you were not allowed to do it with, but he did it anyway for some reason. Somehow. Don't know. Yeah. Weird. Oversight.
Yeah, the whole conviction process is so shady. Like the chief of police, I guess there were no videos of him, and so he conducted it the way that you're supposed to conduct a case where you have a serial rapist. And then the state attorney was at first he was pretty gung-ho until he heard the name, and he immediately started backing down. And so I guess sorry, I'm getting ahead of what's actually going on. So essentially what happened is Epstein, he had this house in Palm Beach, Florida, and what he would do is he would have young women or girls, he would have underage girls come, and then he would pay them $200 for a quote massage, where he would basically make them get naked, and he would jerk off, do all kinds of disgusting things. And then he would also say that they could make $100, or he would pay them $200 and then an extra $100 for each thing that they would do. And he would also say that there's money in it for you if you can bring me new girls.
Ugh. So he's recruiting with them. Yeah.
He's recruiting, and he's
It's
also
like Amway.
yeah. He would instruct them that they should be girls who are inexperienced and are going to need the $200 and are unlikely to go to the authorities. Eventually, this all came crashing down.
I wonder if this has any relation to the economic system we live under.
Well, if you do the math, because I was running the numbers in my head, and if you're a millionaire and you pay someone $200, that is the equivalent of having $1,000 in the bank and paying someone dimes. If you're a billionaire and you pay someone $200, that's fractions of thousandths of cents to you. That's how much he's paying. So he's paying them the money.
He's literally nickeling and diming
them. Fractions of nickels and dimes. And the reason he's paying these amounts is so that they'll come back to him. Like, he's not paying them so much that they're like one and done. And of course, the reason he got caught is because he was doing this with hundreds of girls.
Oh yeah, it's insane.
And so the police do a very thorough investigation. They get several witnesses. Epstein catches wind halfway through the investigation and starts basically doing all these things that we mentioned with the private investigators. And then once it gets to the state attorney, that's when things get really weird, because the state attorney kind of starts backing down to the point where the chief of police contacts the FBI. Jim Acosta gets involved. And
Alex Acosta is the current labor secretary under Donald Trump.
Oh, yeah, Alex Acosta. Sorry,
Jim's brother.
I don't know what I'm saying. I am not qualified.
That's why they think Trump's coming after the pedophiles because of his abuse of Jim Acosta. But yeah, so and then the state attorney at this time was a guy named Barry Kreischer. Interestingly enough, was accused in 1992 of groping a subordinate. But he's like
unrelated, I'm sure.
Yes, it tries to get Epstein off with even a misdemeanor. But we're kind of jumping ahead. I did just want to say two other things, and then we can kind of get into this. So one other thing we mentioned, this the house manager served 18 months longer than Epstein. Just unrelated. I don't know if you're familiar with these people, Matt, but Sherry Jacobus was apparently a columnist for USA Today and The Hill, and she tweeted at Michael Caputo or something. She tweeted at him in July 2018, quote, "Are your daughters ugly like you, or can Trump use them at the Epstein parties so they can survive when you're broke, bitter, alone, and in prison for treason?" Question mark. And she tweeted this at him, and she was fired by USA Today and The Hill. And I just wanted to also highlight that Alan Dershowitz has not been fired by The Hill. So in addition to the manager doing more time, just trolling people with Epstein stuff is also a greater offense. Right. But I did just want to finish the background stuff, and then we finish out with the horrible inevitable conclusion of all this. Basically, Epstein in 1987, he gets hired by this guy Stephen Hoffenberg. Hoffenberg pays him about $25,000 a month for consulting. According to the Vanity Fair article, they engage in a variety of financial schemes, including price manipulations, like straw investing, where Epstein will make investments with money from undisclosed Swiss accounts. No criminal charges. But in 1995, Hoffenberg pleads guilty to a $460 million Ponzi scheme. He's sentenced to 19 years in prison, and he actually tells journalists, I believe in the James Patterson book, essentially why Epstein didn't go to prison for this is you'll have to ask the U.S. attorney. And he alleges that the assistant U.S. attorney, Robert Gold, kept the investigation away from Epstein until the statute of limitations ran out, and Epstein had previously helped the U.S. attorney recover money. We don't know how true that all is, but the important thing is in 1989, Epstein meets probably the most important person in his life, his billionaire, Leslie Wexner. Leslie Wexner is the founder of L Brands, which owns Victoria's Secret, as well as Bath & Body Works. Epstein begins managing his money, 1989. Leslie Wexner buys Epstein his $13 million NYC home, which is apparently one of the largest private residences in Manhattan.
Wow.
There's like a weird story of Epstein.
Let's go there after this.
Yeah. So they're like, according to Vanity Fair, Wexner trusts Epstein so completely that he has assigned to him the power of fiduciary over all of his private trusts and foundations. So he's like totally in control of his money. They go everywhere together. There's a story in this book that's really weird where Leslie Wexner gets married, and then he goes to Epstein to sign the prenuptial, and Epstein gets him to sign it on the bare chest of a Sports Illustrated swimsuit model as a way of being like, hey, this is what you're missing out when you're getting married, just this kind of weird shit. But the important thing here is that it's through Leslie Wexner's ownership of Victoria's Secret that Jeffrey Epstein gets access to essentially hiring power or power within the Victoria's Secret catalog. Like, as far as I've been able to tell, the earliest accusation is 1997. He's accused of groping a woman in a California hotel who he said, I can get you a job with the Victoria's Secret catalog. And essentially there. And though, Leslie Wexner, of course, took all of the pictures of Epstein out of his home after 2008. So I'm sure he has no involvement there. And then, the other thing that happens is he meets Ghislaine Maxwell. Do you familiar with Robert Maxwell, Matt?
No, I don't think so.
So Robert Maxwell, I guess maybe British listeners might be more familiar. He's kind of infamous over there. But so basically, he was a billionaire media baron in the United Kingdom. His body washed up in 1991. He either fell or jumped or was pushed off his yacht, essentially. He was a major media baron in the United Kingdom, but after he died, it came out that he had looted hundreds of millions of pounds from his employees' pensions and used them to pump up the stock price in his empire, which, of course, goes back to him. So this is how Ghislaine Maxwell, his daughter, becomes rich, is, stealing hundreds of millions out of employees' pensions. But the important thing is after her father dies, she moves in 1991 to NYC. She briefly becomes lovers with Jeffrey Epstein, and then according to these sworn affidavits, starts procuring young girls for him. Like Victoria Roberts, we've mentioned.
And in Epstein's words, she's upgraded to his best friend.
Yeah, so there's like a Vanity Fair article that was written before all this came out, and if you read it with hindsight, it's extremely creepy. Yeah. Because, yes, he gives that quote there.
Yeah, and in the Vanity Fair article, the Patterson book goes over this. The original article had details of Epstein's his abuse from what was known in 2003. Then Epstein showed up at Vanity Fair offices, more or less threatened them, and they had to cut all of that stuff from the article. And you could see when you read the article that it's a long article. Every section is several paragraphs long, and then the one about Jeffrey Epstein's quote affinity for young women is only 2 paragraphs long.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's like through Ghislaine Maxwell.
It's 2 paragraphs long. Like he left that in even after cussing them out.
They cut out all the stuff that was. It was just like he likes younger women.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
But through
gross.
Through Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein meets the British royal family, this is where the Lyndon LaRouche conspiracy theory comes in, that the British family is directing all of this.
That's like when Superman and Batman formed the pedophile Justice League. There. Oh man, that's like when Kal-El finds Earth's yellow sun and gains his powers, getting next to the fucking British royal family. Ugh. Those people know how to do pedophilia, folks. Like 1,000 years straight.
They've never stopped.
It's Shepherd's Pie Gate from the Norman Conquest onward.
But yeah, so Prince Andrew would of course be accused of participating in this, but Ghislaine Maxwell she's also friends with Donald Trump. This is how Jeffrey Epstein gets access to Mar-a-Lago. And we've mentioned Virginia Roberts. She was age 15. She was working as a changing room assistant at Mar-a-Lago.
And there are videos with Prince Andrew with his arm around Virginia Roberts.
Really?
It's a child.
It's
horrifying.
Yeah.
But so Ghislaine Maxwell essentially meets her in this changing room, and she offers to train her as a massage therapist, which of course means, according to Virginia Roberts' sworn affidavit, Ghislaine Maxwell brings her to Jeffrey Epstein's house where they both sexually assault her. And this continues for, I believe, 3 years. She essentially ends up being trafficked by Epstein. According to her sworn testimony, or sworn affidavit, was made to have sex with Prince Andrew and Alan Dershowitz, allegedly. I don't know. He's litigious about that one.
I don't know. He's threatening to sue everybody, but I don't think he wants a discovery phase. Come on. I think he's full of shit on that.
Yeah.
I think so much has come out now that he can't sue everybody.
Mm-hmm.
That's another thing. Yeah, who are you going to sue, dude? Everyone knows. I have to say though that
yes.
that anybody the idea that Trump was involved in this just seems very, very far-fetched. All you really have is the quote where he explicitly says that he is aware that Jeffrey Epstein likes young girls.
Yes.
And you have the fact that he founded a beauty pageant for the explicit purpose of doing Porky's-style hijinks.
Right.
And oogling underage girls while they were changing, which he just bragged about.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he's the kind of guy who would do anything.
No.
Of course not.
I think he's actually conducting the secret investigation of all the pedophiles, and they're all going to go to jail soon.
And so what the fuck happened in the 2016 election? There was a Jane Doe who was alleging that when she was 13,
Right.
I
Yes.
guess, through Donald Trump, that she was abused, or through Epstein, she was abused by Trump. And then she was going to have a press conference and didn't show up to it, and then kind of withdrew her accusations. And then I haven't heard anything about it since then.
Yeah, one of the weirdest things about that is that when Trump got elected,
All the pedophilia stopped.
Yeah.
yeah, the judge explicitly said, because he's the president, you should seek a settlement, which is
That's weird.
That's bad judging.
He's just offering some advice there. He's busy. He's got a lot on his plate.
The master deal maker cuts another one.
There's so many deals to be made. He's in prime deal-making position. And you know what he was? Because remember, he finally settled the fucking Trump University lawsuit.
Right, yeah.
That's
So get him while he's still looking to get things out of the headlines, I guess.
Out of court settlement, NDA, deal.
Boom. So many deals. Folks, we're making so many deals. No one's going to talk about all the horrible shit we do.
But Ghislaine Maxwell is, again, kind of a horrifying person.
She's like a high-class Carla Homolka.
Yeah. So, yes, and she attends Chelsea Clinton's wedding in 2010, which is so weird. Again, this is
I love how we have all these two parties who are opposed to one another and certainly are not just one giant disgusting fucking ruling class like in the movie Society, just getting together in a room where their bodies lose definition and they come into one giant sort of disgusting Jabba the Hutt like slithering blob, and then they just feed young children through a chute into the blob, and the blob just absorbs them in one end and then shoots them out covered in mucus and traumatized for life out of the other. And then when they're done, they just go into different parts again and then go on TV and yell about how each other is a pedophile. I love that. It's great. I love the two-party system we have.
I mean, Epstein, he's a
great
testament
film.
to bipartisanship. Like Ken Starr
Yeah,
was one of
seriously.
his defense attorneys, and Ken, who he took down Bill Clinton and also had as a protege Brett Kavanaugh.
Yes, that's true.
We need a return to bipartisanship in Washington, D.C. The good old days. But yeah, it's like a weird thing where it's like, so she attends Chelsea Clinton's wedding in 2010. There's allegations, again, unsubstantiated, that she was the conduit through which Epstein continued to communicate with the Clintons. But it is just fucking weird where it's like, okay, you're at Chelsea Clinton's wedding. Did Chelsea Clinton invite you? Did Bill or Hillary invite you? I mean, what's going on? Epstein, of course, had been a donor to the Clintons before that became politically incorrect to accept his money. But and then Jessalyn Maxwell she's like on she's founded some foundation that's all about saving the oceans.
Yeah, she got a TEDx.
Yeah, she did a TEDx talk in 2014.
Couldn't get booked on regular TED.
It's the foundation to clean the ocean of all the bodies that they dropped from the bay of flying over airplanes over the years.
A lot of trash has been ending up in the ocean.
We got to clean out the trash
from St. James Island,
from Eastern Europe.
But so and this kind of like brings us to the thing where again, this is where in the 90s where these allegations start. Jessalyn Maxwell is allegedly recruiting for Jeffrey Epstein,
including at Mar-a-Lago.
Yes.
Right. Yes. And so this Palm Beach case, which we mentioned earlier, essentially the Palm Beach PD find that from 2001 to 2006, they identify 47 minors molested and raped at his Palm Beach mansion. Two of them said that they were actually like physically raped. But
and keep in mind, Epstein has several properties in Manhattan.
Yes, this is just Palm Beach.
This is just Palm Beach.
Right.
And these are just the ones that the law enforcement was able to confirm.
Mm-hmm. And so this state attorney, Barry Kreischer, he stops returning calls from the detectives. They get suspicious, as we mentioned.
What you do as a state attorney
is
you stop returning calls from the guy investigating the case you're prosecuting.
So he kicks it up to, or the detective tries to get the FBI involved. Alex Acosta, again, current labor secretary, then U.S. attorney in charge, gives Jeffrey Epstein almost immediately this non-prosecution agreement. There's the emails between the prosecution and Acosta, which are essentially saying, hey, let's make sure to keep this out of the press.
Because there's one thing that the politically ambitious prosecutors hate is high-profile sexual assault cases involving high-profile characters. Like that's the kind of thing that you don't want to have your hands on if you want to build a reputation for yourself as tough on crime and become, higher up in the political side, become attorney general or something. You don't want that.
No,
you got to keep that stuff quiet. The thing about this is that this case, like. So they had all this. He was dead to rights. They could have put him under the prison for the rest of his life.
Right.
And then they made a plea deal with him, which, and you look at the way that it was negotiated, was basically everything. The entire settlement was the terms of it were presented by the defense attorneys, and the prosecution just said, "Okay, you got a deal." And when that happens, usually you get something. And traditionally, in a case like this, you get leniency in exchange for naming your co-conspirators.
Right.
In this case, it really looks like they gave him immunity to not name any of his co-conspirators. Like that was the quid pro quo, was we'll give you a sweetheart deal in exchange for you not releasing any of these tapes or not telling anybody about any of the people who you had in your place. I mean, it's the only thing that makes sense. It's the only explanation for these guys just deciding to go insanely easy, violating federal law to give him a deal when they had him fucking done for. It was not like this was an iffy case that they were like, well, we don't want to roll the dice. We want to make sure we get him. He was done for. And then they say, not only you're okay, we're going to give you this light sentence, but anybody unnamed.
Yes. Anybody
who might have done anything associated with you who we don't even know is preemptively immune. And that's so comically, obviously crooked,
right?
That it really tells you that, oh yeah, the only thing that makes sense here, you don't have to be conspiracy theory, you don't have to think there's dungeons and pizza restaurants, is that he had information about incredibly powerful people, and those people had more sway over the prosecutors and the FBI than any concept of the law or even concern for public opinion would.
Yep.
Right, and the other thing is Alex Acosta, again, Trump's current labor secretary, is appointed by George W. Bush. He's supposedly a Republican U.S. attorney investigating a prominent Democrat donor.
Yeah. This is catnip.
Right.
This is the kind of thing that makes your career, and for some reason they can't touch it. It's a hot potato.
There was also in the Patterson book, an unnamed Democratic politician who contacted the chief of police telling him to back off repeatedly.
What?
To the point where the chief of police had to say, this is illegal. Stop it.
Oh, my God.
an anonymous Democrat politician who kept talking about how he feels the chief of police's pain, and
Could the prosecutors themselves be a part of the Epstein ring, you think? Like, I mean, like, that to me makes the most sense. Like, oh, if we nail this guy for everything he knows, we're going to get fucked too. So we might as well say, hey, you can't name anyone as well.
I mean,
Like-
that's the thing is what's so disturbing about it is they don't have to.
Right.
Power is distributed in such a way that your career, if you care about your career, they have an ability to determine your actions regardless of your personal culpability. You know, like these guys, they might not have anything on them. They don't have to have a blackmail file on you.
Right, yeah.
They just have to know that you want to get another better job. And look at fucking Acosta. He's a goddamn in the cabinet now. It worked for him. He made the right call from a career perspective.
Right.
He made the correct, rational, self-interested Bayesian choice or whatever the hell to do that. And regardless of whether he was trying to cover something up that he had something to do with, or he just wanted to keep advancing, that's all it took. And so, like, that's the thing is, not only do you have all these prosecutors and cops either looking the other way or cutting this deal, but all the people who knew about it while it was happening, all the people who worked with and around Epstein who knew it was happening and it didn't have anything to do with it, weren't part of the Yellow King circle, didn't have a passport to Carcosa.
yeah,
All you need, you don't even need. That's the thing. It's all you need is at the very top. All you need is the perversions to be concentrated high enough at the top that all you need to keep that secret is not some cascading level of like Cthulhu worship. You just need people wanting to be ambitious and want their careers to get better, and then that will do the rest.
yeah, that's pretty horrifying. And like, so, and just in what on Matt was saying on like, did they get anything out of this? As far as like what we know, this Miami Herald long piece, the only thing they found was essentially, and this is a weird thing that I learned, is Jeffrey Epstein was a key federal witness in the only criminal prosecution they tried against Wall Street. They tried to indict two senior Bear Stearns executives. They were eventually found not guilty, and then nobody else was held accountable. And apparently Jeffrey Epstein was a federal witness in this. So, you know, the immunity was worth it because we put all those bankers in jail with his testimony.
Yeah, no, that definitely feels like a post facto thing.
Right,
If
they're
everyone
trying
looks
to-
into this,
Yeah.
we have to have some explanation for why we gave him this deal. And it's like, well, these guys, they would have still not gone to jail if it hadn't been for him. His incredible testimony.
And so, just like other stuff from the trial, Alan Dershowitz was, of course, one of Epstein's attorneys, along with Ken Starr.
Allegedly.
Alan Dershowitz submits the MySpace quizzes of some of the victims as evidence. Like,
Really?
Yeah. Apparently, Alan Dershowitz showed that when one of the victims' MySpaces, under the quiz, she wrote, "Ever drank? Yes. Ever smoked pot? Yeah. Ever skinny dipped? Yeah."
God.
And then the fucking state attorney, they call a grand jury, which is apparently like not usual in these kinds of cases, according to the Patterson book. But the state attorney or the lawyers grill the victim about her MySpace page in this fucking deposition. And it's just really weird, where, again, this is a child trafficking victim, you know,
Getting your
being...
MySpace grill.
Yeah, because she wrote, "Yes, I've smoked
Right.
pot on my fucking
We've
MySpace
noticed stuff in your
page."
top 8 that's really suspicious. Jesus.
Hey,
Have
Sean.
you talked to Tom? Did Tom want you to do anything?
Wow, Tom gives your character a thumbs down.
The other really, really unusual prosecutorial behavior, and this wasn't even in Florida, is that after Epstein does his incredibly light sentence where he got to be furloughed 6 days a week and just spend nights in the jail, not even the prison, in the fucking jail. And he got back to New York and he had to register as a sex offender. He then, with the balls of stone, tries to appeal his status, that and argue that he doesn't have to get it renewed. And who argues on his behalf in front of the court is one of Cy Vance's Manhattan ADAs. The fucking ADA says, come on, Judge, like, he's fine. Look at him.
Wow.
Like, where the fuck does that come from? Like, whoa. And of course, Cy Vance, famous for looking the other way for Weinstein and fucking Ivanka and Jared, whose job, he is just the Renfield for every fucking crooked piece of shit